Welcome to the View. Today's topic is Nuremburg trials, a flashback into history. Yeah, about those trials, isn't that crazy?
Yeah, I know. Justice was finally served.
The Nuremberg trials were the trials that prosecuted Nazi war criminals from 1945 to 1949.
Wow, 4 years. That must have been some trials.
I couldn't go over there for an hour myself. 4 years.
You know, I'm interested about these. Why don't you show a clip?
Okay, let's take a look.
Опыты по дублению человеческой кожи еще производились, и только победоносное наступление Красной Армии положило предел этому новому преступлению нацистов.
All around me are familiar faces, worn out places, worn out faces, bright and early for their daily races, going nowhere, going nowhere. Their tears are filling up their glasses, no expression, no expression. Hide my head, I wanna drown my sorrow. No tomorrow, no tomorrow. And I find it kinda funny, I find it kinda sad. The dreams in which I'm dying are the best I've ever had. I find it hard to tell you, I find it hard to take. When people run in circles, it's a very, very mad world. Mad world. Children waiting for the day they feel good. Happy birthday, happy birthday. And to feel the way that
They enslaved almost the entire Jewish population, and they trying to say that they ain't get.
How are they innocent, you know?
Okay, seriously. You gotta understand, these people weren't all guilty. They weren't.
But right is right and wrong is wrong, and that's totally wrong. You got a point?
Hitler was a phenomenal speaker. He could make people do just about anything. He made them believe a lot of ludicrous lies. So they were just like lambs to a slaughter, really. And he left them to the slaughter, and he didn't get what they got.
True. I don't know, let's take a closer look.
Press sent me to Nuremberg to cover the trial of Germany's war leaders. Over 60 years ago it was. Yet all those years have not dimmed the memory of one of the darkest periods in world history, when men were taken to the dock to account for their crimes against humanity.
Some organization that would kill them, didn't you?
The story of the Nuremberg trial has been told so often that we've forgotten the debate that went before. Should Hitler's henchmen be tried in the United States, or in Britain, or even in Russia? Should they be tried at all? Wouldn't summary executions be a better way to deal with the men whose actions had sealed the fate of millions? But at a pre-trial conference in London, the American idea prevailed, that the prosecution should take place on German soil. For all of that summer, London was the focus of the Nuremberg preparation. The Americans, the British, the French, and the Russians haggled over the details, not the least of which were the actual crimes with which the Nazi leaders would be charged.
The Americans led the way, and for the Americans, Supreme Court Justice Robert Jackson was appointed directly by President Truman. He inherited really diplomatic responsibility for the Allied discussions, which had started over the war years, and at London, he was the first among the equals who were the Allies negotiating.
I am convinced that we have an opportunity to bring to a just judgment those who have thought it safe to wage aggressive and ruthless war.
The charges that they begin to draft and they frame focus on three principal crimes, three substantive crimes: the crime of waging aggressive war, the crime of committing crime in war, battlefield crimes or war crimes, and the crime against humanity, the crime of military perpetrators on civilians in occupied nations or even within their own nations. Before London and before the Nuremberg trial that followed, those had never been topics of international agreement or subjects of prosecutions brought against national leaders.
In the end, the London Charter, as it came to be known, provided a framework for the trial that opened here in courtroom 600 on November 20th, 1940.
Now that's a trial.
I think they deserve everything they did. Can you believe some of those criminals actually thought they were innocent? Check this out.
The actual court dock where senior Nazis were tried for war crimes 65 years ago was going on display in the German city of Nuremberg this weekend. The exhibition also features the original films of the hearings in a courtroom where the war crimes of Hitler's closest allies were heard. The Russian foreign minister, officials from France, the US and the UK will attend the opening ceremony to mark the 65th anniversary of the trials. The judgments on Nazi criminals set a precedent for what formed the basis of international law. But as RT's Alexei Yereshevsky reports, some parts of Europe are seeing a worrying Nazism revival.
This Red Army veteran was close to the trial which changed history. His best friend, Roman Rudenko, acted as a prosecutor on behalf of the USSR in the Nuremberg hearings 65 years ago. Sukharev says if it wasn't for Rudenko, the outcome could have been very different.
He understood that the trial was not only about Hitler and Ribbentrop. It was not just a few people who had to be punished, but an entire ideology of mass killing. His speech impressed the judges, so the number of those in the dock rose dramatically.
In a trial which lasted for almost a year, 12 high-ranking Nazis were sentenced to death. 10 got lengthy prison terms. It was a milestone in history.
The Nuremberg trial laid the foundations of international law as we know it. In particular, it created a precedent of judging people for starting a war against other nations. So nowadays, we all know what a crime against humanity is.
Nowadays, most of free Europe acknowledges the positive effect of the Nuremberg Tribunal. But some nations have a complex relationship with the past.
Look, there's a monument to the Soviet Army liberators. And here, just meters away, is the monument to Estonian soldiers who fought alongside the SS troops.
Estonian anti-fascist activist Andrei says this historic paradox is reflected in the current state of affairs in this Baltic country.
Even looking at the crumbling state of this monument, it's clear that our government doesn't see the Red Army as saviours. Instead, they glorify those who fought on the side of fascists. That's despite the fact a large part of our country would never support such ideas.
In April 2007, this clash of opinions spilled onto the streets. The Estonian government ordered the relocation of a Soviet soldier statue from central Tallinn to the outskirts of the city. Thousands of dissenters protested and clashed with the police. A monument to free Estonia was put several hundred meters from the square where the Soviet bronze soldier statue used to stand. It resembles a cross, and in the very heart of it is an emblem which was used by the Estonian SS legions back in 1940s. From swastika marches to mass SS veteran gatherings, 65 years ago, prosecutors in Nuremberg could not have expected a legacy like this. The trial was meant to make sure fascist ideology stayed in the bloody past. But the rise of neo-Nazism in Eastern Europe is a sign that these ideas still live on. Alexei Yereshevsky, RT, reporting from Tallinn, Estonia.